Okay, I decided to conduct my case study on the film Minority Report. It is a 2002 film starring Tom Cruise. Alright, this film is a film about a police department in Washington D.C. It takes place in 2054. It is a sci-fi film, and basically the name of this police department is pre-crime, and what it does, it has these like precogs, these physics predictors who eventually predict like murders and eventual crimes that will eventually occur, and they apprehend the suspects before they can actually go out and commit their offenses. And it's fairly interesting how it works, and it's been very effective. In fact, it has reduced the amount of murders that have occurred in Washington D.C. to 0. And our protagonist, who is portrayed by Tom Cruise, is a man by the name of John Anderton, and he is a recovering drug addict after losing his 6-year-old son and divorcing. And one day, the precog system told him that he would eventually murder a man by the name of Leo Crow, who was a man that he didn't know. And once he learned of this, he went to the pre-crime headquarters, and he found out that they have 3 precogs that actually predict 2 other outcomes besides a potential murder. And he tries hard to achieve another one of those 2 predictions rather than achieving the murder. And for the theory that best explains the situation, I went ahead with the labeling theory. And for those of you who don't know, the labeling theory is an assertion that labels people as deviant, which attaches a stigma of criminality that eventually leads to more criminal activity. And of course, that is one of the many causes of criminality. I've stated these 3 causes of criminality, such as the lack of opportunity, which is probably the most common cause that most people would think of, especially poverty. When you don't have any opportunity to actually mobilize yourself, you'll eventually turn to crime, as this guy in this film, for example. He was a recovering drug addict, and he lost all of his family, so he had no one there to support him despite being a prolific police chief. Crime is also caused by the labeling of society. For example, there are people who are labeled as criminals because of the situations they're in, and in this case, he was labeled as a criminal by the system, even though he had never thought once of eventually murdering someone. And it is also caused by the dramatization of evil, as our protagonist, of course, was, like I said, predicted to become a murderer despite trying to break that prediction. And eventually, the question is, why did I choose the labeling theory? I ultimately chose it because our protagonist in this case was labeled as a potential murderer. And that's what this system does, is label people as potential threats to others. So therefore it can go ahead and apprehend these people and get them before they can actually commit their offenses. And we can even see, like, throughout the film, like, our protagonist, once he was labeled as being a potential murderer, he went on the run and he kidnapped a woman, and which led him to going back to the headquarters. And that's when he figured out that the system offers a multitude of predictions rather than just the murder predictions. And given that this is a sci-fi film, I do think that this is a system that we will potentially see more of in the future, because, like, I think that, like, given the fact that, like, with most murder suspects, a lot of the signs are already there to begin with, and we already know who could potentially commit these heinous acts, I think that technology will eventually determine who will do it, and we can eventually apprehend these people prior to them actually doing their acts. And it's honestly a smart idea. I'd rather have these people apprehended prior to them actually going out and doing their activities. And I don't know a single person who would disagree with me on that topic. Well, And that is the end of my